thank you so much, Cerys, for coming on and chatting with me today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. You are, I know, very highly respected in the industry and, like me, super passionate about helping people create better businesses for themselves. So thank you so much for coming and chatting. And please tell us a little bit more about how you came to do what you're doing and how you help people.
Thank you so much for having me, Deborah, and thank you for the warm welcome. So I help children's activity providers and dance teachers to get into schools and nurseries without cold calling them so they can grow their business with confidence and have a bigger impact on children's lives. And I find that for a lot of dance teachers, they're actually looking for some daytime work or an additional income stream or something they can do that fits around their family in addition to their schools, essentially. And how it came about was I got together a group of dance teachers when I actually moved away here to Wales, and set up online and got together a group of dance teachers and kind of basically asked them what they wanted to learn. And it wasn't any of the things that I thought I would be sharing with them. They just wanted to know how I'd got my dance business into schools and nurseries. And at the time, I just said, well, I just emailed them. Why don't you try that? And they said, oh, no, tried emails in the past. I haven't had a response. Schools are too busy to answer my emails. And I thought, why is it I've had success on email then and other people aren't having the same success? So I dug a little bit deep into what it was that had worked for me and what it was that hadn't worked for me and sort of came up with a formula, basically. And we had a free challenge back in 2019 just to teach them this formula, and they all started getting results. And that's really where this business has evolved from.
That's fantastic. It's funny, isn't it, how businesses just sometimes evolve.
Yes.
And the lovely thing is, I think it's happened similar to for both of us. We've actually ended up with a new business that's evolved out of just initially wanting to just help people, make life easier for them.
Yes.
And that just feels, it's really heart-centered, isn't it? It feels like a good intention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love it. I don't think I could do it anyway. I don't think I could have a business where I'm not passionate about helping people. I just don't think I would have that drive to move it forward.
Yeah. And so how has it been? So you started this in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so what kind of things do you help people with now? What do you offer them? Have you got courses, or do you have like a program?
Yes. Yeah. So I have a group program called the Approaching Schools Academy, and it's my signature program where people can come and learn my step-by-step methodology for approaching schools and nurseries with confidence and getting a response and then making more sales with them. So that's something that we open 3 times a year in line with the school terms. So every time there's a new school term, it's obviously an optimum time for people to be reaching out to their local schools and nurseries should they want to build an additional income stream for their dance school. And we run a free challenge so I can sort of teach you the first 5 steps. So that happens sort of 3 times a year in line with the school terms.
I'm with you. And so this is a really interesting topic, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, anyone that's running a dance school, the demographic, obviously, it is either children, unless it's an adult school. And kind of it's going and finding where those children are. And so, obviously with running a dance school, you've got all forms of different types of marketing strategy, but going into schools, do you find that that's a really good way into reaching the children and their parents that then brings them into the dance school? Or would you say it's 2 quite separate businesses that people end up running?
I'd say, to be honest with you, it's a little bit, both have a knock-on effect on each other. And one of my clients refers to it as the Pied Piper effect, but in a good way, the good Pied Piper. Because what he realized was, although he initially came to me to learn how to get into schools so that the schools would eventually start paying him for some daytime work, what he found was, because he was strategically contacting schools in the same local areas where his community sessions were happening, actually he was able, every time he went and did a demonstration or an assembly or a taster lesson with a school, he was bringing 5 or 6 new students out into his community classes with him. So he'd the strategy can work for both. So the strategy I teach helps you get your foot in the door with the schools, get a response from the schools. And when you've got your foot in the door with them, you can go one of 2 ways, or you can go both ways. So you can either look to sell to the school or the nursery so that they get you into their setting, or you can look to use it as a promotional piece and actually partner up with these settings and get them to help promote you to the parents.
And that's a really interesting option for dance school owners, isn't
Yeah,
it? Because, a lot of principals, a lot of people that run the dance studios, which is predominantly the listeners that we have listening to this
yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
they themselves don't necessarily want to be going into schools to teach. It might be that they are doing very little teaching. They've got a lovely team around them. And what they're actually wanting to do is create more opportunities, either for their teachers or to bring kids into the school. And so presumably is one of the things that you help people with, not just how to get into the schools, but do you also help them in terms of the type of things they then deliver when they're there?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, normally you should have an idea of what you could provide, and I obviously help you to help the dance teachers to make it a kind of a viable option for schools. So to get into the mindset of what schools would actually like to see. So yes, they understand that you are the dance expert, you're a specialist in dance, but there's going to be a certain number of types of services that are going to work better with schools and nurseries than others. So for example, they might want you to go in and deliver clubs, and those clubs could be after school clubs, they could be lunchtime clubs, they could be before school clubs. So extracurricular activities where the emphasis is fun and enjoyment as well as learning a new skill, or especially with dance, and I'm so passionate about working with dance teachers for this reason, you can actually go in as part of the school day, particularly if you're working with primary schools in England. They actually have a ring fence budget for this, so they have a PE premium, where they actually have additional funding, where if you were to go in and say that you could help upskill the class teachers in their confidence, knowledge and skills of teaching dance, then the schools at the moment have funding to facilitate you going in to do that. So that's quite an exciting kind of extra layer, really, in terms of the fact that you get to provide high quality dance lessons to the children during the daytime as part of their PE lesson, but also the school has additional funding to facilitate that if you're also able to help get the class teachers more skilled and more confident in teaching dance. Because I was a primary school teacher. When I did my 4-year teacher training degree, we had one day where we learned how to teach dance.
Yeah.
And that was okay for me because I danced as a hobby all my life since the age of 3. So I could very easily combine what I was learning about teaching children to passing on my passion, which was dance. But for the other, my colleagues on my course who were also training to be teachers who had never had any experience of dance, they're left with one day to supposedly be able to teach dance as part of the PE curriculum. And they're just left. And of course, a lot of teachers won't have the confidence, knowledge and skills to do that. So I am very passionate about helping dance teachers get into schools in the school day, because there is this ring-fenced funding available for it. The other thing you might look to provide is CPD for teachers as well. Another thing, teachers need to take 10% non-contact time in the week where their class needs to be covered, so they can go and do planning, preparation, assessment. It's typically referred to as PPA cover. It might be that the school wants to get a specialist such as yourself in to cover that teacher's class during that time. And again, that's a very viable option for you going in during the school day.
I'm just listening to this. This is kind of, this isn't my field, which is why I'm so thrilled to have you here explaining this today, because I'm assuming a lot of this plays a big part in the approach and the strategy of how you get into the schools. Because if you simply email and say, hey, I could come and do a workshop for you, that's going to have very different effect to if somebody goes at it with this knowledge in hand, being able to say, I can fulfill this element of what the curriculum can provide, or I know I could be used as part of your X funding. Like, that goes to show how much I know about it. I don't even know what the funding is called. So I mean, what are the things that somebody needs to say to a school? I know you can't teach it all in a 2-minute conversation, but what's the fundamental things that they need help with?
Yeah, it's such such a good point that you made there. And I think, to be honest with you, that is perhaps why I was able to get into schools pretty quickly without realizing that I was following a particular formula at the time, was because I had that insider knowledge, having been a primary school teacher myself, before trying. So what I would say is, you're absolutely right with regards to, when you communicate what you do, you are not selling your services, you're not selling dance at this point. You are positioning yourself as a problem solver, and you're positioning yourself as someone that can come in and provide, like you say, as part of the curriculum. So if it is during the school day, or if it is part of the nursery session, for example, you will be following, to a certain degree, learning objectives or early learning goals linked to the curriculum. And you can get all of these online. So you can go onto the programs of study for the PE National Primary Curriculum. You can go onto the early learning goals for the EYFS, and you can have a look at the physical development. Although, of course, dance crosses so many different areas, because you've got the emotional development, you've got the confidence that it brings to the children, you've got the kind of the mental health aspect that a lot of schools are now focusing on, and be really interested to hear if your dance services can actually help from that point of view as well. So I feel like dance ticks a lot of boxes from that point of view. And it really is about aligning your language with how they would speak and getting into their head, really. So you're not just approaching the school, you're approaching maybe a PE coordinator within that school, or a head teacher within that school, or a nursery manager. And you really need to be thinking about what they would want. So they're not, at this stage, as I say, they're not just buying dance. They might not realize they need an external provider to come in and deliver dance, but they do perhaps know that a percentage of their teachers are not confident in delivering dance. They do perhaps know a percentage of their children are, need more kind of gross motor skills, or need help with their emotional and confidence development. So very often these schools and settings know they've got objectives to fill. Maybe Ofsted are about to come in, and they know it was a target from last time. So the more you can fit in with how you can turn things around for a school through your services, and the more you can speak their language. So literally having a look at some of those early learning goals if it's a nursery, having a look at some of those learning objectives if it's a primary school, and just picking out some of those words and phrases and dropping them into your communication. Same with the PE premium. There's a document from the government that tells schools how they should spend it. So rather than writing to them and saying, I hear you've got this funding, would you like to spend it on me? It's more like allowing little what's the word? Just to ring a bell with them, so they see the same words in your communication as they also see in the government document about how they've got to spend the money. And if you're then ticking those boxes, they think, I've read about confidence, knowledge, and skills with dance teachers. Where was that? Oh, yes, in the PE premium. I've got some money I could spend on this. So it really is about seeing how you can align your language with the words and phrases that these teachers in these schools would be looking for.
You know, Cerys, I can really see how you help people with this now, because like this feels like real insider information. Like it feels like the magic secret that nobody else really, because I wouldn't have a clue of any of that stuff. And so I can really see how effective it could be when you've got that insider information. And the thing is, like, I feel like unless you've worked within the educational sector, like, how would we know this information? Even if we've got kids at school, we still wouldn't know this information. Right. I mean, I'm literally fascinated. I mean, obviously, without having to explain everything that you teach on your course, you literally like give people template emails for doing this.
Yeah, I do. I always say to people, do you know what? Teaching you a formula, like a structure for your email campaigns, is far more effective than any template I could give you. Because whereas I do have templates inside the Approaching Schools Academy, which people can pick up and use if should they want to, I kind of feel like that's a one and done thing. So people quite often inquire with me, Cerys, you just got a template you can send to me. I'll buy it, it's fine. And I'm like, well, do you know what? If I sold you a template, I don't feel like I'm really doing you a good job here. I feel like I'm doing you a bit of a disservice, because you could send it out once, but if you don't really understand why there's certain parts in that template that are there for a reason, how are you going to communicate with the schools again? And the thing about Approaching Schools, and I always say it's never a one and done thing, it is a process. You are going to want to send multiple campaigns to the same schools, the ones you haven't heard from. You are going to want to be following up a lot. And for that reason, you kind of need to have things up your sleeve. You need to know what you're going to send to them at the beginning of next term. If you've already sent my template out, what are you going to do next time? So yeah, I do have some templates in the academy. There's training videos that accompany those. But what I think is more important is when I teach you the structure.
Yes.
So it's one of the things I do on the challenge, actually. I quite freely give away a 5-step structure that you learn the 5 steps across the 5 days. So that, and I don't mind telling you, I don't mind giving you an overview of what these things are, but essentially it's addressing a problem. So a very real world problem that a percentage of children or teachers might currently be struggling with. Giving an offer. So it's really super important not to sell in an email, because if we try and sell in our first email, there are people in schools that are exceptionally good at their jobs, and those are the school receptionists, and they will just delete it if it looks overly salesy. So having an offer where they get to experience your work, or your teacher can go in and deliver an assembly or do a quick demo of how you deliver on outcomes to the children and how you can create impact for the school or the nursery. And having a testimonial, having social proof is very, very powerful for schools. They will be looking for it, and they will want to see. And, this is something that you can tweak and refine your process as you go along, but they'll want to see the impact that you are having on children, basically. And if at the moment that is just a testimonial from a parent, fine. But as you go through this process and collect some testimonials from schools and nurseries, it starts bringing in a bandwagon effect. And it means that they kind of see that other nurseries in the area have got this amazing dance teacher in. Why haven't they done it yet? So they start wanting to actually get you in for that purpose, because they can see that you're doing so much good with all the other local schools as well. So it's having that structure that I think people are lacking when they've tried to send emails in the past, and they've either tried to just sell. They've tried to sort of say, these are all my services and this is how much it costs, and the receptionist has ended up deleting it before it's even reached the key decision maker. Or another thing that I see a lot is you wanting to talk all about yourself at the beginning of the email. And I get it, because dance teachers are highly qualified, highly professional people with a lot of expertise, and you want to tell them about all your certificates and your exams and your qualifications and your awards, and perhaps even that time you were a backing dancer on TV, or whatever it is that you've got in your accomplishments. But schools are too busy to read all that. Schools that, busy head teachers and business managers and receptionists and whoever's going to pick up your email, they don't want to read all about you. They just want to know how you can help. So I think that's been the biggest revelation of a lot of the people that I've kind of introduced to my methods through challenges and things like that, is they've gone, it's not about me. I've got to actually tap into what the school wants. And as you said, from a kind of an insider point of view, that's how I can help you.
Are you looking to get precious time back in your life so you can make more time doing the things you love? DanceBiz is a class management and booking software from the lovely folk at Think Smart that will automate and streamline all your dance school admin. It's the perfect tool for all those tasks that just seem to take so long, and will help you to work smarter, not harder. Message me today, folks, and I can give you a code so you can get 2 months free.
And that's really big stuff, actually, isn't it? Just tweaking that messaging and the way in which you flip it round.
Yes.
The acronym WIFM.
Yes.
What's in it for me? That's what people want. And that actually goes across the board in any marketing, doesn't it? It's not just, trying to reach out to schools.
Yes.
So what would some of you've given us so much information already. This is just mind blowing. But what would some of I'd love to know some top tips of things to do and top tips of things not to do.
Yeah, good one. I love this, because this can be a revelation for so many people, that suddenly you see light bulbs going off. You can see them go, I I get it now. That's what I didn't do last time, or that's what I did do and I shouldn't have done last time. So I would say, aside from the fact that the couple of things that I've mentioned with regards to not selling in your initial email, not talking all about yourself, making it about them, I would say also you don't want to overwhelm your reader from the beginning. So people have lots of different ways they can work with schools, and dance teachers, you know, you could go and provide clubs, you could go and provide dance lessons as part of PE, you could provide cross-curricular enrichment workshops, you could provide CPD for teachers. What you don't want to do is you don't want to tell them all of that all in one go.
Ah, I see.
What
Yes.
you actually want to do is just give them an offer that is some kind of demonstration of what you do, and then have the conversation later. So it's like, don't give them too many hurdles to jump through, because they won't do it. They're too busy. They're so busy they can only make a little micro commitment, and that micro commitment might be letting you come in and deliver an assembly to the children to talk about, you know, potentially providing a dance club, or it might be coming in as part of a PE lesson and demonstrating a really high quality dance lesson, and how you essentially teach differently to how any of their class teachers currently teach dance. And it's about having the conversation later. So once you've got your foot in the door, which is the hardest part, then you can have a conversation with them, and rather than telling them all the things you could do, ask them what they need. You know, say, so how can I help you with, what are your ongoing requirements for provision of dance in this school, and getting them to tell you what they need, and then you can fill that gap with a much better service than you could have done if you just sent them a price list, basically. I've got a little story about this actually that kind of highlights this. So there was a school that I was working with, and very early on in my dance business, I didn't really know the marketing stuff. I was just chucking spaghetti at the wall and seeing what stuck. And I was trying to get into this one particular school that I thought would be really, really great to work with. And I was just trying to sell them one after school dance club per week, £3 per child. I wasn't even charging the school. The parents were going to pay. And the school just kept saying, no, we're not interested in dance. The children get bored of dance when it's on the PE curriculum. They're not going to want a club. We can't do after school anyway, so we're just not going to do it. Sounds great, but it's not for us. I was like, this would be such a great school to work in, and ended up sending them out an offer. So I sent out 10 schools an offer, and somehow we ended up including this particular school. So this school grabbed the opportunity that they were I basically said I was going to do 10 free tasters for local schools in the area, and they jumped at the chance. I thought, why did I include this school in this campaign? I know they're only after the freebie now. They're not after what I'm actually going to sell. They've already said their children aren't interested in dance. But I went along and did it anyway. And it was so amazing that by the end of the day, their mindset around whether their children were interested in dance or not had completely changed, to the point where I was taking orders from them, and they were asking me, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do an after school secret street dance club for the teachers so that they can surprise the children in the year 6 leavers assembly with a diversity style flash mob? Not something I ever would have considered putting on my price list. And we can't do after school clubs. Can you do before school clubs? So they were the first before school clubs we ended up doing. Can you also do some afternoons to help with the gifted and talented children? Well, yes, but I'll need to hire in a new member of staff now that you're asking for all of this. So suddenly this had gone from a school that categorically did not think that their children would be even remotely interested in a £3 a week dance club, to suddenly ordering everything that I'd never even thought of putting on my price list. And I think this is really important for dance teachers to understand, that if you go in there just trying to sell something, you may hit a brick wall. If you go in there and you show what you can do, and you let them tell you what they need, you could end up selling so much more.
That's such an insightful message for the listeners. And I love the fact that you're saying, because this is something that I often try to teach as well, you're going to be much more successful trying to sell one thing than you are trying to sell the whole world to the whole world. And very often when I'm teaching marketing and strategy, attraction strategies to my clients, we talk about doing a flyer or a postcard drop or something into schools, and people say, well, and I said, what have you got on that flyer? Oh, well, I've just got the fact that we do ballet, modern, tap, jazz, acro 3 to 18, and there's some pictures of some of the children in the show, and I'm like, right, you need to stop, because you are trying to sell to everybody on that leaflet. And what actually happens is people don't look at it and really identify. They can't find where they fit into that marketing strategy, and therefore it just goes in the bin. Whereas actually, if you'd pinpointed a certain age group or a certain genre, it doesn't really matter what, as long as it's more focused, then yes, there will be a whole bunch of people that will look at it and go, oh, okay, that's not of interest to me. Its classes up to the age of 7. But you're going to have far more success with the age group going up to 7, because all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of people that will be attracted to that. And that's very similar to what you've just said. Don't try and tell them all the things you can offer.
Absolutely.
Just go at it with one strategy, and then you can maximize on that afterwards, once you've built that relationship.
Exactly. And it can always be an upsell. Don't panic if they've only got you in for a club and you really wanted to do a day workshop that fits in with some topic work. Next time there's a theme coming up, or there's an awareness day or something like that, upsell it to them then and get your foot in the door that way. So it's just little micro commitments and then upselling.
It's that kind of slowly catchy monkey.
Yes, I love that.
Don't bulldoze in there straight away. Build that. And it's the same in business, isn't it? You've got to build the know, like, trust. People have heard that phrase a lot thrown around in business. But people do. They need to get to know you. They need to like your approach in their school and how you turn up, how you show up in that environment. And they have to trust their children in your care. And once they've experienced that, then you've built that relationship. Then the world is your oyster, so to speak.
It's really not to be underestimated. And I think that's a big turning point for a lot of people. When they learn this, they go, I get it now. I get it now, why it hasn't perhaps worked in the past.
Because I think people think it's easy. Like, I think they think, oh, go and do a workshop in a local primary school and then get out in the community, build the brand, and you'll get loads of kids come through your door. But like, I've been there, I've tried it. Getting into schools when you don't know this stuff, near on impossible.
Hard work.
I'm always amazed. People say to me, I've literally thrown myself at schools and promised them for free. Like, Deborah, they don't even want my services for free. And so, I know that would that makes you smile, because, it's not about the free, is it? It's about saying the right thing and approaching it the right way.
Because I think that's a really valid point as well, because yes, it's free, but the school has still got to make a huge commitment to getting you in. They've got to make sure the hall is available, and hall space in a primary school is like absolute gold dust. When they're trying to figure out the PE curriculum and the PE timetable, there's not room for a lot else additional. So, that's a big thing. They've got to obviously make sure that you are of a certain caliber, shall we say, that you are worth them either endorsing to the parents or putting in front of their children in the first place. So there's a lot of that kind of that you've almost got to get through first. Yes, you might be offering something for free, but they're still making a commitment to you, whether they're paying for you or not. So I think that's a big thing to remember as well.
I think we think that the value is in, the fact that we've given it for free, but actually it's not even really about the money. Like you said, they've got that pot of money. They haven't got to necessarily find it. What they've got to see is the value in what you're going to give them.
Absolutely. And whenever you can be helping a school to understand that they are investing in you, the more worthwhile that funding becomes to be spent on you as well.
Amazing. And so just going into briefly now what working in schools and nurseries can actually look like.
Yes.
We're just assuming that we're going to go in and deliver the same stuff that we do in our schools. Like, what sort of stuff doesn't really work? If somebody does get their foot in the door and they're in there and they've, they're the right side of the door and they're like, yay, I've got in this school. What should they then actually be delivering, and what doesn't work?
That's a really good point, actually, because from a dance point of view, depending on what kind of dance you're providing at your schools already, you obviously, a lot of the time you are perhaps working towards a syllabus. Maybe you're working with a particular exam board. You may find that some of the ways in which you teach are different, because if you're going in during the school day and you're providing curricular dance work, whether that's because the dance that you're teaching fits in with the PE curriculum, or whether it's because you're actually using dance as a cross-curricular means of helping them explore a new topic, for example, a historical topic. Quite often you can find ways of using dance and fitting in with different topic work. We had a dance teacher who used to always get booked for Egyptian dance by the same school each year and things like that. You will find that you are more a facilitator of the learning than going in and teaching a set routine. So I know not everybody teaches set choreography, but some people might only be used to that way of working. If you go into a school and just teach set choreography as part of a PE lesson, then the objectives of the curriculum aren't actually being met, because a lot of what the schools will want to see is they'll want to see that the children have been introduced to a concept. They use that concept as a stimulus for then creating some of their own work. So yes, you may have taught them certain steps and movements. Now you might be asking them to work in groups to put that into their own combination of steps and movements, for example. You may, at the end of a lesson, you may split the class and get them to perform to each other. Schools love that because they love giving children the opportunity to kind of self-evaluate and evaluate their peers. Again, that's part of the learning, to be able to evaluate each other's performances. So it's really just about tweaking. You will very much be going in as the dance specialist, and you will be able to bring so much more to the class than most, if I'm honest, than most class teachers would be able to. However, it's how you facilitate that learning to match those learning objectives. So my strongest piece of advice there would be go and look at the learning objectives first, and then see how you can get what you would ordinarily teach, your genre, how you can get that to match those objectives
and to fit in with them. Yeah,
exactly. So it's more about how you can facilitate the learning and the progression in learning for the children than it is about sort of teaching a set routine or a set syllabus. And then equally on the flip side, if you were to go into the after school clubs, it's more about the fun and enjoyment and the skills than it is about kind of, they don't want to still feel like they're in school. They want to feel like they're part of a club. And it's as much about kind of the social skills as well as learning something new, which they absolutely will do for your dance. But again, you may potentially not be looking at syllabus work in a club, because the main purpose is going to be the fun and enjoyment side.
This is really interesting, because I've taught in primary schools before, and I think this is potentially where I went wrong, because I think when I went in, I was all about my skill set and what I know I was good at and what I was teaching in my classes. In my little head, when I was a much younger teacher trying to do this, I was just going in and delivering the same thing. They were still kids. They were still in a hall. Like, I just replicated the same stuff. And actually, I think you need a different skill set and a different approach. Well, I know you need a different approach and a different skill set completely. Like, you can't really replicate what you do within your dance school. Like, I used to get so infuriated when the kids, didn't even have their PE kit on. Like, it's one thing them not being in a leotard and tights with their hair scraped up, but when they're in their school uniform with bare feet, like, used to drive me potty. But you can't approach it like that, can you?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And actually, moving on from that as well, in particular, is that when you're teaching a set thing with your syllabus work and it works beautifully well in your dance school, don't expect it to work so well in the school, because it's a different demographic. You've got children that don't want to be there. So in your dance school, they've all enrolled, they've all probably got an interest in dance, or they've got parents that want them to dance, etc. When they're in school because they have to be in school. So if it's a PE lesson in the school, you are reaching a whole new demographic of children that don't have this background in technique that perhaps some of the children at your school already have. You're also going to find there's a range of abilities. You're also going to find that there are some children that maybe display more disruptive behavior than you're perhaps used to in your dance school, because again, they have to be at school, but they haven't elected to learn dance. And then with the after school clubs, yes, there's a certain element of choice in it for them, but sometimes, let's face it, parents see it as childcare, whether we like that or not. To send them to the local after school club that's going on at that child's school so they can go and pick them up later is an easier option in some cases. So you are dealing with a different demographic of children than what you're probably used to dealing with in your dance school as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you go into it knowing that, with the right mindset and the right intentions and the right outcomes, that, the intention of the outcomes, then that's fine, isn't it? But when I used to try and do it, when I was a teacher in my 20s, I just found it infuriatingly difficult and challenging. But I obviously didn't have the experience and the know-how and the understanding of all the things that you said. So, I think even what you've just said, I think will be so helpful to those people that may listen to this podcast, that maybe are finding some of those challenges.
Yeah.
Do you teach that aspect of it in your course, or is that separate?
That's separate. So more so about the marketing and getting your foot in the door, because I find that's what people really need, and it's the biggest thing that people struggle with. But I do run sort of training events from time to time, and one of the training events, one of the masterclasses I have, is a behavior management masterclass, and it's particularly how you manage behavior positively in an education setting. So in particular, how you deal with those schools. So yes, it is something I do train people on for those who feel they need it.
Yeah, wonderful. Wow. Do you know, this has just been so amazing. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
Absolutely packed with really insightful things. I thought it might be fun just to finish with a couple of quick fire, silly questions. I mean, not really anything to do with, running a dance business, but just kind of a few fun things to finish with. So I'm really sorry to put you on the spot like this, but this is part of the fun. So, are you ready? We're going to throw these at you.
Let's go for it.
Favorite business book?
Oh, probably Carrie Green's She Means Business.
Oh, I've got that. I love it. And in fact, I'm going to Expert Empires in 2 days.
Oh, amazing.
Speaking. And I literally, because she was going to be there, I've upgraded to the highest level ticket because I get to hang out with Carrie Green.
Oh, that's brilliant.
How cool is that?
Oh, that's great. You'll have a great time.
Okay, that's not very quick fire now, is it? Okay. Favorite place?
Thailand. I went over to teach in Thailand for a few years, lived out there, spent a lot of time out there. So I definitely have to say Thailand.
Oh, fantastic. That's another whole podcast here.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite person from history that you would love to spend time with that's no longer here?
Oh my goodness. That has really flummoxed me. Favorite person in history that I would like to spend some time with. Let's just say Freddie Mercury, because I like Queen, and I'm gutted that I did go and see Queen, but obviously Freddie was no longer with us.
Oh, who wouldn't want to hang out with Freddie Mercury if they could? Okay, so next one, also a tricky one. Favorite person that you'd love to have 15 minutes with that's still alive now?
Ooh, favorite person I would like to have 15 minutes with that's still alive now. Let's just go big. Let's just say the Queen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Who wouldn't want to pick the Queen's brain? I love that. Okay, what about one thing that you still want to achieve in your life?
One thing that I still want to achieve in my life. Oh, I don't know, Deborah. You really put me on the spot with these.
I
They're
started
hard
off with
to
favourite colour, and then I was like, no, that's
Oh, I can
nowhere,
tell you that one, turquoise.
nowhere near challenging enough. Tricky one.
What was the question
What was
again?
the question? She's got the question. It wasn't favourite ice cream. It was one thing that you'd still like to achieve in your life.
Mint choc chips. See, I can answer that one. One thing I would still like to achieve in my life. It's really hard for me because at one point I would have said I'd like to work from abroad, and I've achieved that. And the next part of me would have said I'd like to have an online business, and I've achieved that. The next part would have said that I want to speak from a stage, and I've achieved that. So
you need some new challenges, Cerys.
I do, I really do. For me, this is just a year of scale. So, I would really like to just get to kind of the next big figure in my business, essentially. I know that's a boring answer, but it's, I'm really, really focusing on scaling at the moment. So I think just getting to the next level.
The next level. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll let you Okay, last one, because this all have been quite hard. Scariest thing you've ever done? Something that really pushed you out of your comfort zone?
Do you know, this might sound a little bit silly, because I've done scary things like, I don't know, jump into a cenote in Mexico, which I really wished I hadn't after I did it. It was so cold.
What's that? What's a cenote?
It's like I don't know exactly the science behind them. People who've been to Mexico might understand, but it's like an underground cave that has filled up with water. And, just for fun, you can go and jump in them if you want to. But they are freezing, absolutely freezing cold, to the point where they shock your system. So it can be quite dangerous, which I didn't realize until I'd done it. And then someone else tried to scare me by saying, there's loads of skeletons down there, don't you, from hundreds of years ago. So there are little things like that. But what I would say to you is that actually, when I mentioned Thailand before, when I first moved to Thailand, I didn't think it was such a big deal, but it really massively was. So I was going out there on a primary teaching contract. It was pivotal in my business because they allowed me to specialize in dance, which I'd never done before. And it's the reason why when I came back to the UK, I set up a dance business. But when I went out there, I started getting all these chest pains, and I thought there was something physically wrong with me. When I went to the doctor, they said, has there been any big life changes recently? And I said, well, yeah, I'm going to move to Thailand in 2 weeks. And he said, what, indefinitely? And I said, well, at least for 2 years minimum. And he said, well, that's why your chest is hurting. You're just anxious. And I didn't realize up until that point how scared I was. And when I got out there, I sat in the hotel room for 24 hours, couldn't figure out how to ring home to tell my parents I'd made a massive mistake. Didn't order any food in, didn't dare venture out of the hotel, thinking I would get lost in Bangkok and nobody was speaking English. Absolutely terrified, just literally froze for 24 hours until I got introduced to all the other teachers, met everybody, and suddenly I realized and I had an amazing time, and Thailand was really good for me. So I'm sorry that wasn't a quick fire answer, but for me, that was massively out of my comfort zone. And yet I didn't realize until I'd plunged myself into it, just how far out of my comfort zone I was. But, it turned me into the free-spirited traveler that I now am. So it was a great opportunity for me in the end.
That's a really great answer, because I think that some of the scariest times in our lives are simply when we just step out of our norm and we go into a territory that we're not used to.
Yes.
And to some people that can feel really small, stepping in front of a class of primary school kids instead of being in front of your lovely children in your school, that can be a really scary experience. Whereas some people do it every day and don't even think twice. So, scary, I think, looks different for all of us, doesn't it? That was a really great story. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
Such an amazing conversation. And I know that my listeners will have really taken a lot from this today. And of course, people can check out the show notes to find out all about how they can come and find you, find out about your course, what you've got going on. And I'm sure you would be very happy to welcome anyone that is interested in learning more about approaching schools.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye.